I'm Beth, and these are my memories. To the complex and precious people who appear in them, thank you. I forgive you, and I'm sorry. You shaped me, and I carry you still. In remembering, I've come to see us all more clearly, not as villains or saints, but as humans doing the best we knew how. I must have forgotten, until now. Tracy and I had never had a falling out. We were going through more of a slow fade. Still friendly, still reliable, but not as close, not as comprehensive. She'd been gradually pulling away in nearly imperceptible ways since our sophomore year group had moved away to college, over junior year and its emotional roller coasters. And during senior year, we were there for each other, but the vibe had changed. At the time, I couldn't figure out why. When I felt the friendship waning, I naturally wondered what I might have done to cause it. But life experience reminds me now that not everything is about me. She might have just been growing in a different direction than I was. But it's easy to see that now. I couldn't then. The previous fall, we had still been close enough to co-chair the Winter Sports Queen election through the Orange Crush Booster Club. It was a fair amount of work, setting up the election, taking nominations, creating the ballots, ordering the winner's flowers and tiara, but also fun in the way school projects can be when you're laughing together. Don't ask me who won. I thought it was one person, but everyone else tells me it was someone else. I would have to go to the basement and pull out my senior yearbook to be sure. Not worth it. Over that winter, the two of us made plans to meet some friends at a basketball game at Padua High School. Tracy picked me up in her mom's station wagon, which was always a bit of a gamble. We seemed to always have some kind of adventure when she took us places. One time, she couldn't stop the car while backing out of a deeply sloped driveway and yanked the emergency brake. It didn't stop the car so much as scream roll it backwards into the street at a slightly slower pace. But my dad and stepmom were stingy with their cars, so her station wagon was our only option. It was northern Ohio in winter, which meant snow. Always snow. Tracy picked me up and headed for Padua, which was only a couple of miles away. She pulled confidently into what she thought was Padua's driveway. We felt a little drop of the pavement, and the car promptly got stuck. Grumbling something about
these deep chuck holes,
which was what she called potholes, she started rocking the car back and forth, trying to free it from whatever slushy trap she'd driven into. The tires crunched and slopped a few feet in each direction, but it was clear we weren't going anywhere fast. I bit my tongue and tried not to remind her that we were late for the game. Even in the moment, I knew that wouldn't be helpful. After several minutes of this icy back-and-forth struggle, our attention was drawn in the direction of a muffled shout. Hey! When we looked that way, we saw a policeman come flying out from the direction of the school's front doors. We were alarmed to realize he was after us.
"Oh no, go!"
I urged, with panic rising in my voice. The rhyme was fun, but this was no time for poetry. He sprinted cartoonishly toward the car, trying not to slip in the snow. His arms waved dramatically as he shouted in a shrieky, flustered voice,
"Stop! You're tearing up the lawn! Back out! Back out now!"
He reached our location and gave the front of the car a hard shove, barely enough to move the car, but enough to motivate Tracy to gun the accelerator, sending slushy mud flying and miraculously reversing us back onto solid pavement. I guess she just needed a reason to floor it. The policeman, huffing out huge clouds of steaming breath, started towards the driver's side window, but Tracy had no interest in a lecture. In that moment, we gave up on the basketball game and booked it, fast. We weren't sure where to go except far, far away from Padua. and the policeman, who was still complaining loudly as we headed back out to the road. As she drove us away to sweet freedom, I looked back to see him testily flicking chunks of muddy snow off of his ruined uniform pants. I didn't think Tracy needed to know about that part. She was already frantic. This was our first crime since the wobbery during band initiation. She was going to hate prison. She just knew it. In her defense, the snow had obscured the pavement edges and markings, and once we felt the drop as we left the asphalt, we were already in trouble. Tracy pulled over a few blocks away to assess any damage. Her mom's station wagon was now shotcreted in mud, both sides splattered like a Jackson Pollock painting in a limited palette of brown and gray. Given that her mom was a devout Catholic, and given the likelihood that the priest would mention the desecrated Catholic school lawn in Sunday's homily, it wouldn't take much detective work to connect the dots, especially when the police officer reported back that 2 clueless girls in a station wagon had been the culprits. There had to be a way out of this before we got caught. We brainstormed anyone who would let us hose off the car without asking too many questions. My house was definitely not it. My parents hung out with Tracy's folks sometimes and doubtless would spill the beans at some point. We needed someone rascally enough to help, but not righteous enough to report us. Our friend Matt came to mind immediately. He was a band kid, basically good-hearted, but reliably ornery. We drove all the way to his house, far out of the way in 7 Hills, pulled up into the sloped driveway and knocked on the back door. Matt answered the door in shorts and a t-shirt, chewing a bite of popcorn, blinking at us, clearly confused about why we were turning up uninvited on a Saturday night. We were surprised but relieved he was even home. We had hoped for someone who would just let us clean the car without needing too much explanation, but Tracy couldn't help herself. She immediately launched into her breathless tale of the mud,
Oh my God, Matt, you're never going to believe what just happened to us.
the lawn,
We got stuck. The cop came running.
a defiled law enforcement uniform,
My mom is going to kill me.
the doubtless disappointed priest, and Tracy's probable impending excommunication.
We have to hide the evidence.
Matt listened, although whether he was amused or irritated was not immediately clear.
This could only happen to you guys.
He crammed another handful of popcorn into his mouth, threw on a jacket, and led us out to the garden hose. Tracy's relief was palpable. At least she had a chance now to escape her fate,
You can rinse it,
he said.
but all the paint's gonna fall off in about 2 days.
Tracy weighed her options. A mysterious, sudden paint failure was preferable to being outed as the girl who tore up Padua's lawn. It was getting colder by the minute, and the frozen mud was barely intimidated by the nearly as cold hose water. Matt brought out a few jugs of hot water from the kitchen sink. We finally managed to rinse the frozen mud off the sides, but probably not very well. The lighting in the driveway was too dim to be sure, but the car probably still looked like it had been driven through quicksand. We were cold, wet, and wanted to go home, and we had done the best we could. We thanked Matt, who laughed at our predicament but didn't judge, and didn't rat us out. We told him we owed him one, but neither of us ever paid up. Matt never took his car swimming in a mud puddle or evaded the police in the dark of night, I guess. And he apparently survived the inevitable questioning by his parents as to why their driveway was suddenly a muddy bobsled run. Now out of danger, Tracy and I giggled about our complete failure of a night. We decided if the people we had planned to meet up with asked, her parents hadn't let us have the car to go to the basketball game. When she dropped me off at home, I realized how wet and filthy my clothes were. I threw my mud-speckled jeans in the laundry, wiped a few spots off my coat with a wet paper towel, and went into my room to read, curled up under a blanket with a steamy mug of cocoa, chuckling to myself the whole time and internally smiling that we had felt like us again. And we never got caught. Either she got away unindicted or the priest had taken mercy upon her guilty soul. but I think no one knew except Matt, and he kept his word. The rest of senior year seemed to speed up after that night. Aside from the Padua fiasco, the months blurred into a flurry of exams, college applications, and financial aid forms. The college things took a lot of energy because I felt completely unprepared to figure it all out. I needed loans because my folks didn't plan to pay for any of it, and they also didn't help with any of the paperwork, so I was left fumbling through the whole process. Trying to navigate college applications and how to pay for it alone only added to the sense that everything was accelerating. Prom was coming up fast, and no one in the senior class had asked either of us. I later heard that a band guy had considered asking me, but apparently decided against it because he never did. So it was touch and go until a couple of weeks before prom. Finally, Tracy and I each asked a junior class boy from band and started preparations. We had a plan. The concept of prom is indissolubly entwined with the subject of my shambolic hair. At that time, it was chin length and badly feathered. Every morning, I washed it in the shower and then straightened it with a brush and a blow dryer. It was still taking 45 minutes to get out the door. So this year, I was facing the same issues I'd faced in 1982 in the prom I attended with Jack. I couldn't do French braids again, though, because it was shorter now, and I didn't want photos to show the same hairstyle 2 years apart. Tracy wanted to get a perm, and convinced me to go too. My inner voice wondered if she had asked anyone else ahead of me, but I was just happy anytime I was included in her orbit, so I agreed. To be fair to 17-year-old Beth, I did not know at that time that my hair actually had ringlets. I just thought it was wavy and frizzy. I'd never had a cut or beautician curious enough to investigate what I actually had. So I said,
Okay, sure, I'll come with you.
I envisioned this perm solving all my problems. Spoiler, it did not. Tragically, regrettably, hysterically, we both got perms. We had gone together to a salon at the Parmatown Mall, which was risky in that anyone might have seen us walking out. In hindsight, the person setting my hair should have been able to tell that it would not be appropriate for my hair type, but she said nothing, not a peep. She just put the tightest little rollers in my hair, slathered on those deathly nose-roasting chemicals, and fried my perfectly healthy anonymous ringlets into monstrous death spirals of destruction. My nostrils burned for days with the ghost smell of that acrid toxic waste she had plastered on my head. When she pulled out the rollers, one by one, and rinsed the stinky slop down the drain, she had warned me.
Now remember, don't wash your hair for 48 hours or you'll lose all the curls.
I watched with growing horror in the mirror as she pulled the rollers out, one by one, and each 10-inch strand of hair immediately sprung into a 2-inch nub pointing in random directions.
What have I done?
The drive home felt like hours. Every second that passed, this disaster was becoming more and more permanent. The instant I got back in the house, I immediately ran to the shower and washed my hair over and over and over. But it was too late. I had the makings of a Brillo pad. My natural curls were fighting the perm, and the perm was winning, but not quite all the way. No matter what I did, it was like King Kong versus Godzilla on top of my head. There was no taming this, no flattening, no straightening. The brown pile of tangled, coarse string formed into a stiff, fuzzy cube. Tracy was thrilled with hers and couldn't understand how much I was struggling with mine.
It's just a little more body. It's not a big deal.
It reminded me of how she had laughed about the unwanted kiss when Chad had cornered me in the haunted house. It felt weird to be so out of touch on things like this. But the days were passing and prom was barreling towards me faster than I could comprehend. Certainly faster than my hair could grow out. I was mortified. To further add to the awfulness, I had spent all my dress money on destroying my hair, so I couldn't afford to buy a new dress. Janice suggested I could wear my stepsister Maggie's prom dress from the year before. Maggie had always been stylish and popular, so I agreed. Sure, that sounds like a great idea. I couldn't wait to see it. I should have asked for a photo. Finally, the dress arrived. Janice unboxed and brought it to me on a hanger. I was speechless. This couldn't be the right dress. It was pretty, lacy, elegant, but it looked like a 1920s wedding dress. Floor length, full lace, high-necked, and white. In the mirror, I saw myself buried in translucent layers of delicate fabric. Every movement created a shimmery ripple in the skirt. If this had been any other color, maybe I could have modified it to feel more at home in it. I looked like a plastic-haired mannequin eloping. My stomach lurched. There were no other good options. I could wear this floaty white social catastrophe or my pink dress from 2 years earlier at Jack's prom. But there was abundant photo evidence I couldn't wear that same dress again. I was doomed. I even considered canceling, but it was my prom. I had to go, even if I was ridiculous. On the day of prom, Grandma Irene was visiting and helped me get ready. She loved the dress, but she was born in 1916. It probably looked like something she would have worn to her own formal. She was crouched on the bathroom floor, hand sewing another strip of lace along the bottom to lengthen the dress a few more inches. I was brushing my teeth when a blob of toothpaste foam dribbled out of my mouth while I looked down at what she was doing. The bluish-white glop plopped right in the middle of Grandma's curls. She laughed it off
Oh, Ichabod.
and wiped it out with a wet washcloth, then dutifully returned to the lace she had been working on. Why we had saved adding this lace for the actual day of prom is unknown. Maybe I'd been more worried about the deranged straw on my head. Maybe I'd been in denial, hoping for a miracle dress to appear from the ether. But reality had arrived, and its name was Bridezilla. My handsome date wore a white tux with a red cummerbund. He looked adorable, but thank goodness we were well past the disco era. I have prom photos from that night that aren't quite as bad as I remember it, but the dress is still bridal at its core, and the top of my head is still boxy in the pictures. But my date looked gorgeous, even in his Saturday Night Fever suit.
Ooh la la.
Our friend group sat together at a big round table with white tablecloths. Someone snarked that she was.
Always the bridesmaid.
I groaned, but conceded that the joke was funny. I was almost invisible, blending with the linens. Like at the 1982 prom, we received keepsake glasses, this time wide champagne stems that were printed with Normandy High School Prom, 1984, all night long, which was our class song for some reason, like we were all such party animals. Champagne was not included. In the photos of this night, Tracy and I are together, with and without our dates, smiling, enjoying the last blast of senior year. But inside, it felt like we were reaching the end of more than our school years. By prom, the drift between us had become clearer. We were still friends, but it didn't feel the same. I wasn't her person anymore. I had other friends, of course. I'd been in Ohio for 5 years by then. I still had Biscuit and Marielle and Natalie. I had Josh and Matt, Tracy Z, and some other band friends. But when your best friend feels like she's evaporating, it's like vertigo. The world doesn't feel right. The inside jokes don't work anymore. The person you rush to tell things to doesn't seem as ready or eager to hear them. It felt much like it had when Corinne and I had grown apart during the second half of 9th grade, having pretty much fallen out of touch by the time we got to Normandy. I wonder if she felt left behind like I was feeling now. Tracy and I never had a fight. We didn't stop speaking. She just seemed distracted. I was left with an awful perm, a god-awful borrowed dress, and a friendship that had quietly unraveled. And that subtle distancing, especially just before graduation, was chilly. I missed the moments laughing and sometimes panicking together, like the night we destroyed the lawn. I couldn't have known that night with the mud would be one of the last times it felt like the old us. I had shared all my secrets with her over the last few years, and we had worked through so many problems together. I had opened up about my fears and insecurities, but Tracy didn't hang out with me much on weekends anymore. When the phone was for me, it usually wasn't her. I would see her across the cafeteria laughing with other people, not catching my eye and waving like she used to. We didn't walk down the sidewalk behind the school together anymore. She sometimes drove and mostly didn't offer me a lift. And with graduation approaching, I knew the safe, warm world around me would soon be ending. The comfort and feeling of home I'd had since Hillside wouldn't last forever. For the first time since moving to Ohio, I felt a dawning understanding that I would soon be moving forward solo. Even the people I loved most couldn't come along with me on the next journey. Thank you for listening. These are my memories, and maybe they echo yours too. I must have forgotten, but I remember now. All writing, editing, and sound design are by me as a labor of love. If you enjoy I Must Have Forgotten, please support the show by liking, subscribing, and leaving a kind review wherever you can. It really helps other listeners to find me. Sound design for this episode includes excerpts from MuseHub and Pixabay. These audio textures help carry the memory, shape the emotional arc, and are honored with gratitude here.